the differences between being an entrepreneur and being a successful entrepreneur. You know, putting the fact that you're a CEO in your Instagram profile doesn't mean that it's what you're gonna be able to do for the rest of your life.
Yep.
So, to me, people piss me off because they're complaining and their great-grandparents, if they're not alive, would literally come out of the grave and punch kids in the mouth right now because they didn't have the fucking internet to make your dreams come true. There was no practicality to living the lives that we're living. Let's call a spade, me, with all my stuff. I would have a bunch of liquor stores in New Jersey right now if I was the generation before me.
Which would be fine, but it's
Hell yeah, it would have been fine. I would have not known another thing.
For sure.
Of course it would have been fine. Look at me. I came from nothing. My family came from nothing. Now I'm the biggest real liquor retailer on the East Coast. It would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But the platforms we have now, you could be the greatest entrepreneur of a generation if you want, if you're good enough. The opportunity has never been greater. The internet is America on steroids, and you still have people complaining.
About opportunity,
Listen, I'm so happy so many of you do it. More for me. Keep fucking complaining. Thrilled. Interested.
I'm gonna put a pin in two things.
Right,
One, first of all, is like
good thing you stopped that.
Yeah, I know
really
better.
I just don't understand.
Yeah. Before you.
Chase, seriously, give me one more second before you segue.
Okay.
Can you like help me here and get on this bandwagon? Like, we're so lucky.
We are lucky.
We're so lucky. Like, you could have been an ant. I've got every idea that's gonna be successful over the next 100 years. It's all about AI and VR and AR and augmented and all this. I'll give them to you all. It doesn't matter, because most of you won't execute against it. The reason I put out all my best stuff and I'm liked and I don't charge for it is somewhere along the line I realized that 99.9% of you aren't gonna do anything about it. You're gonna ponder it, you're gonna get super pumped up when you watch me say it, and then 3 weeks later you're gonna give up because you're not willing to pay the price. And that's cool. Everybody's different. But you need to figure out what price you are willing to pay for what you want. It has been insane to me how many people have emailed me in the last month about the 2017 Flip Challenge, which for you that don't know, was a video I made in December, which is, so many of you email me asking me for $5,000, and meanwhile there's $5,000 worth of crap sitting in your house right now. Go grab it, post it on eBay, flip it, and make your money. How many people have flipped something since they saw that video? Raise your hands, just wanna say, higher. Don't be shy. That's it. You know, like, it's insane. People emailing me like, hey, I just made $8,000 because I sold $100 of this, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Funny thing happens when you actually work. Go figure. Funny thing happens when you actually realize it's money that gives you the opportunity. Everybody's got a big idea. Everybody's got the Uber of lawnmowers. Everybody's got the Airbnb of ice cream. It's not gonna happen. And if it does, please take the clip of this talk, email me and say, in the title, Gary V, you were wrong. And I will be the first to call you and say, Mazel Tov, I am so pumped. But I just want to remind especially 20 and 30-year-old in this room, I came out the gate and I worked every day for 13 years before I said a goddamn word to anybody. I talk a whole lot now, and I've made up for those 13 years of silence. But I just want to remind everybody that I didn't make a video to the world about anything about business until I was 35 years old, after I worked every single day from the time I was 22 and in reality 14. And then I started talking. There's a whole lot of talking going on. How about more action? How about more execution? How about more paying prices for what your mouth is saying? That is what I hope you do. It's not about time, it's about the time that you allocate in the value exchange, right? On the way here, after I landed, I had about 13 minutes, and I tweeted out to my audience, tweet me your phone number and I'll call you. And so a bunch of people did, not worrying about privacy, right? Because they're putting out their number. And I called 11 people by the time I got to Chase for breakfast. And then I was, when I got here, as I was getting ready for a shower, because I needed to shower, I just quickly checked all my tweets, and some guy tweeted and said, it didn't take Gary Vee a lot of time
but now I am an advocate for the rest of my life. And that phone call cost me, I don't know, 39 seconds, right? So you can make a lot of impact with a short period of time. You can do nothing with a long period of time. There's people that live their whole lives without making any impact.
I advocate one of two, actually I advocate one thing, and that is playing both games and stay the fuck out of the middle. So you either like,
Agreed.
My rate is 10 grand, but I love your project. I know you don't have 10 grand. I judge things on two accounts. One, do I love them? Is it passionate? Do I love the people, the brand? Is it an opportunity? Or do I get sort of paid? And when I can put them both together, that's great. But I'm not gonna take $500 because the $500 person never turns into the 50,000 person, because when they have 50 grand, they don't say, oh, let's call the $500 photographer. So I would either do it for free or do it for the full rate, and anything in between is danger.
I totally fundamentally agree with that. I'm a big fan of the clouds and the dirt, the extremism of the raw, and the high, and I'm a big believer in that. And by the way, I also think you have to know where you're at. Like,
oh yeah,
like
pretending it's gonna get you in trouble.
Yeah, I'm so big, like the amount of friends that yell at me, designers, got so mad at me when I started doing this. They're like, fuck you, Gary Vee, you're gonna give away wine for free? I'm like, dude, you're in the service business. Like, I paid for the wine, thus I resell it for more. I'm like, I'm in the service business now. I do tons of stuff
for sure,
for spec, to be a gateway drug to get paid. I'm like, dude, nobody knows who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
Your design is not that great. You think you're so great? Why don't you get some business and money before you worry about spec work? People are more upset about the religion and the emotion around it than how it actually practically affects them.
That's so true.
I think the first thing you need to do is look at yourself in the mirror and figure out who you are. Self-awareness, and not everybody has it. Trust me, I have a lot of friends that don't have it. Is very important. You need to think about how you best communicate. So, is it written word? Is it audio? Is it video, right? Clearly it's pictures, because that's what you've decided to do with your life, right? But within the confine, and so immediately Instagram is very important to you, right? You should naturally be good at it. Then you start breaking, like for me, it was video. I never knew before I started Wine Library TV, but that camera with that red button on it, that's my life. I love these things. Right? I'm gonna kiss these cameras. You know, that was good for me. Twitter was good for me because I'm very ADD, quick, quotable, so that was good for me. So I think first you try them all. Literally all those little logos there, you try all of them for a month. See what comes native to you, see what kind of communities form up for you, get involved in the communities, heart other people's photos, get involved. And then kind of audit yourself after 6 to 12 weeks and say, okay, I'm gonna really focus on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook, right? Because as an individual, you're not gonna be able to produce everywhere. I try, but I don't. And so you've gotta pick the ones that, there's no right answer. It is completely reverse engineering the DNA of the way that you singularly best communicate to the world. Like if you're great at audio, SoundCloud's an incredible place to play.
Yeah.
So you think more about what you can do rather than the audience which is out there?
Because the audience is at scale on all these platforms. All of them have huge enough audiences to massively change your life. So I'm a straight creeper, right? Like, so on the way here today at JFK, I literally like got to my gate, looked around, found like 4 13-year-old girls, literally sat behind them and watched everything they did, right? So by the way, real quick, if you ever hear that I go to jail, just know it was market research. Different version of it. I know, you didn't expect that one?
You crazy son of a bitch.
I know it's a little, patience.
Wow, that is not the word I expected you to say.
I know. Patience. I am dumbfounded by the notion of people trying to drive results and thinking it's gonna happen in 90 days. I mean, I get emails from people like, hey Gary, this isn't working. Like, I need your help, this isn't working, I'm not getting traction. Which I replied to, I'm like, hey, sorry, Sally, how long has this been going on? Like, what are you doing, how long? She's like, I've been doing this since, since March, 30 days, 60 days. And I'm like, I did Wine Library TV every day for 18 months before anybody watched it. Because this was 2006, people weren't in the habit of watching online video, right? Patience is the #1 thing needed. If you want people to buy things, if you want things to happen,
if you want to build a business that you own instead of working for somebody, and you don't realize that this is a year's game, that this is a marathon, it's why I love social media. The reason I love social media marketing actually is because it doesn't drive results very quickly. It's actually shockingly human. It's how we actually work in real life. You know, I can't just roll up on you the first time I meet and ask you for something outlandish. I can ask you something more than I could have asked you for 90 days ago because we've been spending more time together. Not just how life works. And so I would say patience. One thing I would tell a lot of you, and I've told a lot of my photography friends and painting friends, is never do the next job for what you did the last one for until the market tells you fuck you.
Always.
That's how I did my speaking career. I didn't know how to price. I got a great story, I'll do it in 1 second.
Sweet.
First call ever, he's like, Gary Vee, we want you to speak at this event. I'm like, yeah. They're like, what's your fee? I'm like, what? I was like, hold on. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I'm like, okay, put them back on. I'm like, so I'm a businessman at this point. I'm 32 years old, built a big business. So I'm no dope. I'm not like, how did this happen? I go, okay, I'm like, what's the most expensive number I can throw? Because I can always go, right?
For sure, and without laughing at yourself.
Right, so I'm like, $5,000.
And they said, great.
He goes, great, we'll send you over the contract. I'm like, fuck. So we're talking. And by the way, this is where I'm a bad guy. I'm a bad guy. Well, listen to this. So we're talking, and I'm like, motherfucker, he said yes so fast.
So fast, it's terrible.
So we're talking, and he's like, okay, let's wrap it up here. So you're gonna give a 1 hour talk for five, I'm a, whoa. I thought you said a half an hour talk. I go, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry, my ear, maybe I didn't hear, like, I'm so apologetic, but I gotta be honest with you. For 1 hour talks, it's $10,000. He goes, okay, great. I go, fuck. I was so pissed. I'm like, and so,
it's so true.
And so I'm hopeful that if they're watching here, that if, you should always have the confidence and the self-esteem to raise it one more time, and the market will say no.
For sure, at some point. But find out what that is. Find out what that is. And people ask me, well, like, what's your rate? I'm like, I don't have a rate. I try and figure out how much money you have, and I extract that plus $5. And because what it makes you do is realize and respect the value of the person who's sitting across the table from you. It's like, what I want you to say is like, how much is it to speak? 20 grand, like, oh shit, okay, well, I have to go back, and we only had 15 budget, I think I might be able to make it happen, and they go back and they go, great, we got 20. So just swim upstream just a little bit.
Let me promise you something. I know tens of thousands of people, and I know thousands of people extremely well, and I know hundreds of people deeply well. There is no correlation between how much money someone makes and their level of happiness. I have friends who make $47,000 a year and are the happiest people I know. Their work-life balance is on point. They're part of 2 soccer teams. They play video games. They watch every show they want. They take 2 vacations that they scrap together, and they're freaking happy as hell. And I know tons of people who I grew up with in the Silicon Valley boom who have hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank account and are as miserable and as lonely and as broken as you'll ever see. So I implore all of you to please reverse engineer and figure out who you are and figure out what level of monetizing and stuff you need and what level of creativity you need. I promise you one thing that will catch you very off guard. I should be way more rich. I leave money on the table every day. I've left ungodly amounts of money on the table. I spend tons of times sending DMs and engaging with people, meeting people randomly and not cashing in. I actually believe the statement I'm about to make. I think that I love the journey and the game of entrepreneurship so much that I have subconsciously sabotaged my financial upside to make sure I can play this a little longer because I fear if the numbers keep getting too big, eventually it will take the fun out of it. When you are lucky enough, like I am, to actually do something that you love so much, do something that puts pressure against the one thing you care about besides it, which is the time I spend with my family. My family is my whole life. And being this and doing this is the only thing that cuts into that. I couldn't breathe if I wasn't an entrepreneur. I didn't breathe when I wasn't an entrepreneur. That's the reason I got D's and F's in school, because I just couldn't be me. And I'm not capable of that. And so I think being here excites me because I think coming to not LA, San Francisco, New York, London is always more fun for me. It always feels a little more practical. It always feels like there's a little bit more chips on the shoulder, which is what I have. But I want to remind everybody, just because you didn't grow up with a trust fund, just because you don't live in Silicon Valley, the market doesn't care. If you're good enough, you will win.
And you just go backwards, use it, learn it. Don't punt it, even though you're in last place and you're not proud of your following count. Never let following count be a self-esteem barometer.
At all.
Become a craftsman in it, because when the next Instagram comes, when the next photographer's eye-based platform comes, which it will, which it will, absolutely, you may move quicker this time because you learned from the last time. And it's funny, I told everybody to go on Twitter that knew that I was right about YouTube the year before, but I wasn't me and nobody listened. It was so fun for me in December and January to tell my homies to get on Snapchat. A lot more of you listened because I've got a little street cred now, and a lot have won. A lot have done really well.
Right? The thought that now we can let the masses fund us to produce something instead of going to the gatekeepers, the rich institutions and individuals, just speaks to the democracy that the internet is creating.
Amazing.
I think it's great.
But you want to know more than that.
Yeah, how many Kickstarter
he knows it's great.
accounts can you do in a year? Or
I'm sorry?
I have so many clients that want to do a Kickstarter like every couple months, like every quarter, and I just think that that's a really bad idea.
I think it's a bad idea if you don't have
too much hooking. Right?
Well, I think it's a bad idea if you don't have talent, or if your talent isn't extreme. Like, listen, if you're talented enough, I think of so I love hip hop, right? I think of rappers that are good enough to jump on people's albums over and over and release 2 albums a year because they just have that much content, right? So if you can put out 3 great Kickstarters, well then great. I mean, 1 Kickstarter is too much if your product's shit, right? So I think again, and I think if you're paying attention very carefully to this interview, I keep harping on value. There is no formula. The formula is how much value can you provide. If you can provide unlimited value, you can do it forever. You can do 12 Kickstarters. The problem is most people can't, right?
Yeah.
You know, but what I can tell you is the one thing I really believe in, more than anything, is smart everything. So the notion of, and you heard this last night, so sorry, I'm very big on the notion of smart refrigerators. I'm a retailer at heart. I know smart refrigerators are being developed. They're very close to market. The notion that your refrigerator will know what brand of soda or bottled water or milk that you put in after you put it in 3 times, and then when you've only got 1 can left of your 6-pack,
send you a note.
You've got 6 buds in there, you're down to 1, it reorders it for you.
And then a drone flies to your house and drops it off.
I think it's.
Did you guys hear Bezos talking about that craziness?
But I think it's interesting to think about. I think that now that we've lived through big things like the internet, like Uber, Airbnb, eBay, Amazon, I think more of us will accept like, that's interesting, that could happen. The other one I have a lot of heart for is smart pants. I think smart pants are coming, meaning when you put your pants on, imagine a world where you put your pants on and your pants text you and say, eat a salad today, fat ass. Because it's documenting how you fit in it. So what's starting with smartphones.
Does it say it aloud?
It can. By the way, I actually think that's good. So I actually think the way that I'm gonna lose 15 pounds in 10 years is gonna be my pants saying it out loud. Because just to me, I can control it. If I set the setting of it telling everybody, I'd be publicly humiliated and rooted on, and I think that would actually get me to do something about it.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think-
Tim Ferriss experiment, add some stakes to the game, right?
Always. So I think smart everything. I think you get into a world of smart everything, you get into, you see what's going on with Nest, with thermometers and
I love
thermostats,
Nest.
and I think smart shoes that correct the way you walk. I think there's a lot coming.
Good.
Let me tell you another thing. It has never been less valuable to be smart about information than today. It has never been less valuable. Who's the 19th president? Oh, I don't know. This guy, right? every piece of information. This is a very important point. A lot of people made a lot of money. A lot of people made a lot of relationships. A lot of people had leverage within their circles about being informational smart. That has been completely wiped out.
Yep.
It actually has 0 value. And so, which is why it's insane what our children are going through in the school system. They're making them memorize facts that are at their fingertips. shit.
Yeah, it kills me.
Kills me.
Yeah.
And so I hope my children can be DNF students, and that gives me time, since they're not gonna work on homework, for me to teach them the real shit,
Yes.
right? And so, I think we're living, again, I keep repeating in this interview, the internet is the biggest culture shift in the history of human beings. We're living through it, so we can't contextualize it, but we are grossly underestimating what's happening.
How did you turn it around?
Yeah, winelibrary.com got hacked by Chinese hackers, and credit cards got exposed, and TechCrunch writes about it, and it starts getting a storm because they're leveraging, kind of my name for the headline. And I jumped in and I just owned it through and through, called every person that got hacked. I think people are grossly underestimating the I'm sorry. As a matter of fact, let me really take it deep for you. I'm gonna go deep. I actually, within the last 2 years, recommended a client do something wrong on purpose just to say sorry, because I truly believe the sorry is actually more valuable than the status quo. Yeah. So I actually think the reason I'm not fearful about anything is that I know that intent matters. And I know that my mom and dad raised me the right way, that I was born with the right DNA, and that my intentions are never bad. I'm highly competitive in business, but I'm highly competitive in the fact that I want to build the biggest building in town. That's how I want to get there, versus what a lot of people do, which is they want to tear down all the other buildings around them to have the biggest building. I know that I'm living a life that, I want my legacy to be good. And so I'm never scared of anything, because I know I'm human. When I make a mistake, I know that I'll put in the triple effort to fix it. And so that's my recommendation. I don't understand why people don't realize that's the case. The whole put your head in the sand, or you don't want to deal with it, well then you deserve to lose. You make a mistake, listen, what's so insane is all these cliche things you grow up with as good things to do are actually the right things. It's proper to own up to a mistake. It's good to be nice to your neighbor. It's stunning. Yeah. It's stunning, but it's so true. And the reason it's more true than ever is because there is a lack of privacy, because everybody is a media company. You're recording my answer right now on your glasses. We're living in a world now where transparency is at its height. We're living in a world where a lot of the cliches that people want to zing on, which is authenticity, transparency, all this, it's real. I know they're buzzwords and they're pissing everybody off, but it's true. And so it's never, and I'm going to say this very seriously, it has never been better to be a good person or a good business. It's never been better, because what social networks have done is they've layered on top of the internet and have created plumbing for word of mouth. And now your reputation, your word of mouth really does matter.
Yes.
The notion of writing books is actually stupid. I actually think it's not a great business model. I can make a lot, I can do I've been thinking about these retreat consulting sessions, not a masterclass, but some version of it a little bit better than the bottom feeding that I think is going on in the mass market, where I can make more money in a 3-day trip to Turks and Caicos with clients than I can through all this process. But it's ironic, I do think of these as jabs. It's actually the answer to Chase's question earlier. There's a lot of people I can't consult, because I charge $80,000 a month. But this really is through and through the truth and the secret. And the reason I released it now and didn't 2 years ago is because I knew I had something. The reason I'm releasing it now is I've trained enough people that it's going to get out there anyway, so I might as well put it out and own it. I think this is the best $30 investment that anybody can make. I'm very proud of that. And you're absolutely right. I do think of this as a jab, even though it is my right hook. And listen, jabbing and right hook is very complicated. I didn't try to sell anything for 19 months on social networks. My first post in August, hey, my new book's coming. Can you buy 5 copies if I brought you any value? By the 3rd post in August, right? People were like, oh, you're fucking selling too much, Gary. I'm like, motherfucker, I haven't sold anything in 2 years, right? So everybody has their, some people don't want to be sold to ever. And that's great, and I respect that. So jabs and right hooks, there isn't a perfect formula, back to the question earlier, but I think you've got me pegged. I will throw right hooks that feel as jabby as possible, because I have this obnoxious North Star goal professionally. I think you throw your ultimate all-in pure right hook when you're finished. If I decide at 62 that I don't want to fight for it anymore, that I don't want to miss more time with my family, or whatever my psyche is at that moment, you will see my final right hook. and it will be cashing in a shitload of chips and it's gonna be very profitable, you know? But for now, I'm not in that place. When Mark bought Instagram for $1 billion, a couple months earlier, I did some Fox program and I said that, I was like, it was December, and they're like, hey, make some predictions for 2013. I was like, Facebook's gonna buy Instagram, right? Cool, whatever. 4 months later, it happens. And CNN asks me to come on because the video went a little viral in the tech community. So I was on Piers Morgan. And on Piers Morgan's show, his opening line is, this company's 550 days old. How the hell is it worth $1 billion? And my opening line is, they stole it. I get out of the studio, I'm hardcore Twitter, so I go on it, and literally there are thousands of tweets of people calling me a fucking idiot. So literally that night, from like 10 o'clock at night to 4 in the morning, I favorited every single one of those tweets by hand, all of them. I think this is a good story because this is what an entrepreneur I think does. I favorited them all, and then I guess last year this time, right? Facebook bought WhatsApp for $18 billion, and every article like the next day after the news came out is like, oh wait a minute, they fucking stole Instagram. And no joke, for a week, my wife and I went to Turks and Caicos for a weekend, right? Luckily, she just likes to read and I can't bother her. And I laid on a beach for 19 hours a day, 2 days in a row, and replied to every single person that called me an idiot and said, what now, bitch? It baffles me how many people think that they're bigger than they actually are. I hear people say like, well, how do I get into New York Times? Or how do I get that meeting with that CEO? And oftentimes I just say, 1 is better than 0. The steps it takes to actually get to the biggest places in the world. Before you get a meeting with, you know, Zucks or Cuban or Barry Diller or whoever you're trying to have a meeting with in the business world, well, you've got to have a lot of little meetings to build up your cadence. People are always like, man, you've been on Conan and Ellen and the Today Show and CNN and Fox. Like, how do I get that? And I'm like, well, I also did 1,000 interviews, it feels like, on videos that got 1 or 19 or 137 views.
Like my PR people and all my managers and handlers are really pissed at me because they're like, why are you spending 15 minutes doing these blogs that have 6 readers, you know, every single day, and you're passing on the stuff that we're giving you to be on CNN or New York Times?
I still, even today, am as happy and sometimes even more excited to be on a podcast or a video blog that's only gonna reach 100 people because I'm always about depth versus width.
Do you wanna go wide or do you wanna go deep? I want to go deeper with my community. I want to give back to people that were fans of me.
And so even today, where I have more leverage than I did 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years ago to get bigger platforms, I still live under the motto of 1 is better than 0. To me, doing these interviews is a process of the work that so many people are impatient and not willing to do. Are you willing to take 10 minutes to get 195 views? I am. I don't know who you think you are. You've not gotten the exposure yet. When you have not made your name just yet, when you're still making the climb, when you're not paying attention because nobody else is, because 217 people are watching the video, I'm grinding when you're sleeping. I did those 87s and 59s and 137s and 813 views day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out, and continue to. You might make a video on somebody's video show that has 89 viewers, but one of those 89 viewers may be a producer at CNN or might be the CFO of a big company that you're trying to reach. And so undervaluing just that one view, it needs to be the right view, but it's one view, is a humongous mistake. It's about having the humility. It's about not saying no, even when you've made it. And the 1 is greater than 0 concept is something I'm proud that I continue to execute on. If you're not your biggest fan, you've lost.